So I have a little confession to make. Let's just keep this between the two of us, shall we? I am an unmarried, childless woman in my late 50s. I live not alone necessarily, but I live with five cats. Am I the crazy cat lady? Oh my, how did this happen? Well, stick around to find out. Hi, my name is K.A Bloch, and I am the award winning poet and author of 4 books that consist of poetry and prose. My channel is called The Practical Poet, and each week on my channel, I do a weekly video poetry reading where I read a poem from one of my books and give a little bit of the backstory, and then I get into the video poetry reading. I also have a blog called thepracticalpoet.com where you can find written copies of all of my poems and read the backstory there if you would rather see it in print instead of listening to somebody read you a poetry reading. So, back to the introduction. So, yeah, I have 5 kitty cats, and I'm not even sure how that all happened. I can tell you a little bit of the backstory. I mean, I was never a cat person. We always had dogs growing up. My dad didn't like cats. Our neighbors had cats, and they never interacted with us. They were always sleeping and always very aloof. And I just grew up thinking that cats had no personality. So when I was about I think I was about 30, and I just happened to go to a pet store, and I don't even know why I was at a pet store. I didn't have a pet at the time, but I just happened to wander by the adoption center, and I made a connection with this little beige and white tabby. I think her name was Buffy, if I remember correctly. But she was super chatty. I mean, she reached out her paw to me and she started talking to me, and I started kind of talking back to her. And I knew that when another person came in and started looking at her too, and I got a little bit possessive, and I said, "Give me those adoption papers. She's coming home with me." And it was kind of like that love at first sight. I renamed her Gabby because she was such a chatty little cat, and she just never was quiet. She would just walk around chatting the whole time. And I learned very quickly that, boy, kitties really do have a lot of personality. I worked long hours at the time and living alone, as I mentioned. I felt kind of bad for Gabby being alone for all of those hours. So I decided that I was going to get her a friend. And I went to the shelter one morning and I found a little buff and white. Notice the theme here, buff and white. Tabby named Theodore. Actually, his name was Summer Boy, but I named him Theodore. I just thought it was a cute name for a kitty. And I brought him home. He was about 6 months old, and he did not treat Gabby very kindly. He would, chase her and bite at her and claw at her and the whole thing. And she kind of started hiding a little bit. So I thought, well, in order to bring her out, I need to distract Theodore and get him a friend. And, enter Misty, a little gray. Finally, I changed the theme up, got a different color. Kitty, a little gray Maine Coon with beautiful green eyes. And she was just the sweetest thing. And those two seemed to occupy each other and leave Gabby alone. And Gabby kind of I went into her own little, hiding places and stuff like that. She wasn't as social as she used to be when it was just the two of us. And then just around September 11th, 2001, when the country was just in shock and everybody was just trying to find some peace and comfort, we happened to find another little calico kitty that my boyfriend fell in love with. And we brought her home, and her name was Phyllis, which is a funny name because it does kind of fit her for some reason. I'm not sure why. But anyway, we renamed her Liberty in honor of, the commemorating the event that happened just a few weeks before that. And we ended up calling her Libby. So I refer to that group as the core four. And, we were a happy little family, the 5 of us. And, unfortunately, suddenly Gabby passed away. And I started to realize that, some kitties are just happiest being a single kitty. And I think that Gabby was probably one of those kitties. The bond that I had with her was kind of shattered with each new kitty that I brought on. And looking back, I do feel really bad about that. I know I gave her a really awesome home and tons of love that she wouldn't have had otherwise, but I still wonder, how our bond would have been had it just remained the two of us. So if you have kitties or other animals, you may notice a shift in the dynamic when you bring a new animal into your home. And sometimes it's a great thing and sometimes not so much. But I do credit Gabby with being such an amazing cat, and me loving her so much that she led to me wanting to take on other animals. She led to me wanting to get Theodore and Misty and Libby. And then eventually, as each kitty passed on and there was a little bit of a vacancy in my home, and in my heart, if the opportunity presented itself, and it always does. To bring a new kitty on. So right now I have the 5. You may see one of them wander in here. My little one Clover tends to like to make an appearance on the videos, or usually I kind of lock them out of the office, but I figured since I was talking about them, I would let them make an appearance if they choose to. You might hear the scritch of the litter box behind me. They always seem to want to come in here and use the litter box when I'm filming for some reason. I'm not sure why. Um, but anyway, back to the reason for this video. Are you familiar with those national days of, National Day of Kindness that we just had last week, or National Day of, whatever it may be? Last week or a couple weeks ago was Comfy Clothes, which was one of my favorites. I always feel like some of these days are obvious, like in my home, National Drink Wine Day, that's every day. Last week was National Dark Chocolate Day. And I think National Dark Chocolate and National Wine Day both fell within the same week. So, I was in my glory with that. But one day last week was National Love Your Pet Day. And, again, some of these days I feel like they're just, we don't need a special day for it. It happens every day. But I do appreciate that these national days, do take a time to kind of honor and commemorate, whatever it is that the day happens to fall on. So I was inspired by this poem by the National Love Your Pet Day, and I started thinking about all of my animals and the joy that they've brought me. And I did learn along the way too with all of my kitties. I mentioned earlier how I felt like they were always aloof and not really interactive. I have found, and if you're not a kitty person, keep this in mind if you ever do have a cat or adopt a cat, or I should say a cat adopts you as it happens. The thing to keep in mind is kitties will give you back what you give them. So if you ignore a cat's going to ignore you. But if you interact and you talk to a cat and you play with it and you engage with it a lot, it's going to return that back in kind, even tenfold. So I have learned that each kitty has a different personality, and they just bring so much joy and love, obviously. And you may not be able to see it right now, but I have little paw prints going all the way down my shirt. So I really am the crazy cat lady. It's true. So I'm just not going to deny it. But I started thinking about a poem from my second book called Scatter Seeds of Kindness. I know there's probably a glare on here, but there's a poem in here that I wrote. It's called Stereotypes, and it has a subtitle, and that subtitle is AKA Crazy Cat Lady. And the reason that I wrote this poem was I was thinking about my kitties, and I think that probably before I wrote this poem, maybe I mentioned to somebody that I had maybe 4 cats at that time, and they kind of gave me that look like, are you live alone, you have all these cats, and they maybe even called me the crazy cat lady, even if it was done in an endearing way. I started thinking about some of my other friends or people that I know that have 2 or 3 dogs, and I see them walking around the neighborhood with their big dogs. And we don't live in an area with big condos or anything like that, so they have these 3 or 4 big dogs in what might be not a lot of space. But I never hear anybody refer to anybody with multiple dogs or multiple hamsters or guinea pigs or what have you as crazy. It only seems to be us that have kitties that are get that moniker of crazy, and I'm not sure where that comes from. It's one of those, pardon me, crazy rules that society has dictated and that everybody has kind of fallen in line with. But who makes these rules? Who is this society that makes these rules? And why do we feel like we have to follow them, or why do we feel like we're an outcast if we are outside of those rules of society? I mean, think about a woman, myself, an unmarried woman. We are called a spinster, but an unmarried man, oh, here's Clover. An unmarried man is called a bachelor. A woman who likes to date around a lot, gets a maybe not so kind name, beginning with a W perhaps, but a man is called a gigolo. It's just these stereotypes and these kind of unfair things that people label on other people. Can make you start to feel kind of like, is there something wrong with you because you live outside these rules of society, because you're kind of bucking the system a little bit and doing things your way? In 2020, during the COVID lockdown, there was a poem that I wrote in the same book, Scatter Seeds of Kindness, called My Bubble. And it talked about how we were all, confined to our little bubbles during that time. And if you remember that summer, that was the summer there was a lot of civil unrest in the country along with the COVID lockdown. And a lot of people got into some depression, and suicides increased and divorces increased, and there were some negative repercussions for that lockdown. But me personally, I really enjoyed the lockdown, to be honest with you. I enjoyed kind of living inside my little bubble where I didn't have to go out into the world if I didn't choose to. I mean, we all had to. We had to get gas and groceries and stuff like that. But, social activities were really limited and stuff like that. And I actually found some comfort in that. I was like, I don't have to go out today. I can just be me in my home with all my kitties and just enjoy my little bubble that I'm in. So a lot of people that may have felt along with me like that, they may feel like if they don't fit into the societal box, if they don't check all of the rules that that society feels like we should, they may feel like they're a little bit of a square peg in a round hole. And that if you're not a confident person and you feel a little bit self-conscious already about your life, that may really cause you to withdraw from society and to take shelter in that bubble like many of us did during that COVID lockdown. So, who again makes these rules? Society is always clawing at our life, it seems like, doesn't it? But you know what? We can claw back and we can live life on our terms, and we can give the proverbial middle finger to society, and we can say, I'm going to live my life in a way, in a manner that makes me happy. Life is tough and life can be very hard, and I feel like we need to surround ourselves with things that make us happy and things that give us joy and give us meaning and a reason to get up in the morning and to enjoy our lives. And in my case, I guess that just happens to have pointy ears and whiskers, um, and so that's what I choose to surround myself with. But when we give that proverbial middle finger to society and we say, I'm going to live my life the way that I choose, and I'm going to, in the words of Frank Sinatra, do it my way, that helps to build some confidence. Success is happiness and success is great revenge to society. So if you can just say, hey, you know what, maybe I'm not living life the way you think I should be, or he thinks I should be, or my neighbor or my grandmother or whoever thinks I should be, but I'm living it my way and I'm happy, and I'm fulfilled. And I'm sorry that maybe you're not, but I am, and this is my life, and I only get one. I only get this one life, and we have to do what makes us happy, and that gives us strength, and that gives us courage and confidence to move forward. And so maybe we can influence somebody else who's struggling with that same lesson of, maybe they don't feel like they fit within society, but they see us kind of doing things our way, and that may give them a little bit of a courage to say, I'm gonna do things my way as well. So we never know who's watching. Watch my channel for a poem called Role Models that's coming up soon. My poem and on my blog that talks about that, how there's people watching us a lot, and we can be a role model for them by how we handle things. And so maybe if nothing else, when we do things our way and when we live our life on our own terms, we may influence somebody to do the same thing. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get into the poetry reading of Stereotypes from Scattered Seeds of Kindness. Before I do that, I've been talking for a while. I'm going to take a nice quick sip of tea. It is a nice windy, very windy day here today, but almost 60 degrees, which we've had a very bitter cold February, so this is welcome. Nice blue sky out there, but still the tea is really good. Pardon me, one more sip. So again, this is Stereotypes, aka Crazy Cat Lady, from the book Scattered Seeds of Kindness. The written version can be located on my blog at The Practical Poet if you don't want to stick around for the video poetry reading. And you can also read the backstory and a little bit of my what I was talking about as far as confidence and living life on your own terms, etc. So let me just find this poem. I always talk about how I need to get a different bookmark, and this is a good example of that. So I can't seem to find my page here, but okay, here we go. Stereotypes. I have a friend who has 3 dogs. They live within her heart. She cuddles them. She kisses them. They rarely are apart. When people see them walking by, they smile or stop to pet. No one calls her crazy, or at least they haven't yet. I have 4 cats that live with me, whom I love with all my heart. I cuddle and I kiss them, and we rarely are apart. But when people hear of my large brood, they shyly look away. They don't want me to see their face that says that I'm cray cray. So why is there the difference between our furry friends? Who decides what's acceptable? I guess that all depends. Who decides these rules in life and in society? Why is someone smiled upon, but others called crazy? I don't need someone's judgment, nor in their eyes to see their pity. There is nothing I'm ashamed of because I love a kitty. Isn't it a better cause to bring into a home an animal that's safe and sound instead of left to roam? Is it such a wrong thing if it brings such joy to me, even if outside the norms set by society? But one thing we have in common, no matter what you love, be it dog or cat or hedgehog or even tiny turtle dove, this one thing I am certain and I boldly will proclaim: when it's time for them to leave us, our hearts break just the same. So that was the video poetry reading of the poem Stereotypes, aka Crazy Cat Lady. And so even, talking about in there about the person that has the four dogs and, nobody seems to bat an eye, but, people think us that have the kitties are cray cray. And just talking about where does that come from, where do those rules come from, we don't know, right? But and we'll never know, and all we can do is just live life on our terms. One thing I wanted to mention though is I do understand that animal hoarding is a very real thing, and I'm nowhere near that. We did take on a hard luck case, a 10-year-old kitty that was going to be euthanized by her family because they no longer wanted her, and we stooped in and grabbed her, and she's 19 now and so happy and living a great life. And so she was a bit of a hard luck case, and that's how we ended up with the fifth one. But when she passes on and crosses over that rainbow bridge, I have no intentions of replacing her, and because I do know that animal hoarding can be real, and I love them so much that I could probably have a household full, although I won't. So that is one thing that I'm sure society would agree with me on, and I would agree with society on, that we always have to do what is in the best interest of the animal. And again, I think society would agree with me on that. So I'm going to leave you. I did find a quote today. Actually, it's funny that I found this quote today when I was doing this video reading, talking about the stereotypes and talking about how, sometimes we feel like we're different and don't fit in. I thought this was a great quote, so I'm going to leave you. Unfortunately, I don't know who penned this quote. I don't have the author, but it is such a great quote, so I'm going to share that with you now. And it says, "I believe that being different should I messed that up. I'm so sorry. I believe that being different should not be feared, but accepted." And so with that, I'm going to leave you. I have Clover here on my lap. She is looking for some petting and some loving and attention. So go give your animals a hug. Think back to National Love Your Pet Day. Again, in my house, that is every day. And if you like this video poetry reading, I hope that you will hit the like and subscribe button so you can be notified every week when I post a new video poetry reading. And it is Friday. I am off to have some wine and cheese and kick off the weekend. So I hope you have a wonderful weekend wherever you are. Thanks so much for watching, and go kiss your lovely pets, dogs, cats, hedgehogs, bunnies, whatever you love. Give them lots of love and attention this weekend. Thanks. Bye.